Club news, transfer news, match previews, legend interviews, Spurs winning, press conferences, covering everything Tottenham and England.
Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. There is now just under an hour and a half of the transfer window left. Of course, lots of players have gone out the door, lots have come in the door, but have Spurs done enough in this transfer window? That is the debate, and that is exactly what we'll be talking about this evening. I've got a fantastic lineup this evening. I've got channel regular back with us, Craig Dearman. Craig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. Yeah. I think that's about it for the show. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon. Bloody hell, honestly.
Hopefully there should be some positivity in this show tonight. We've
That's
also
true.
got Josh Hughes back with us, of course, channel regular and broadcast journalist with the Daily Mail. Josh, how are you?
Yeah, been better, but let's just see how this last hour and 23 minutes goes. Can't go any worse.
And I'm delighted to bring back Sonny Snelling, of course, Sonny Talks Spurs YouTuber and video lead for TalkSport. Sonny, great to have you here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Yeah, a bit weird that, Tottenham usually active on a deadline day, aren't they? Panicking, but it seems like it's all done and dusted early doors and with a weird signing that's been announced today, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, even though we have no idea who he is or what he is.
Sonny, let's start the show with you. How are you feeling about the transfer window? Of course, Ange Postecoglou has had 3 transfer windows now. The squad has changed dramatically. Lots of players have gone out the door. Lots of players have come in the door. Ange Postecoglou has said on a number of occasions, including in today's press conference, that he believes the squad is stronger and he is happy. He feels that he has been backed in this window and in other windows. How are you feeling as a Spurs fan right now?
Yeah, I think we've addressed some really key areas. I think bringing in Dominic Solanke was very important. We needed a striker after we were scoring goals last season, but there were still chances that we needed a potent goal scorer. And I believe Dominic Solanke is that striker. Might have been a bit of an overpay, but he's English, he's Premier League proven, and that's what you have to pay in this current market. I like the signing of Archie Gray. I think that's a really promising signing. I think what it is some fans are a bit disgruntled because, maybe the likes of Eze were being touted and a lot of, big names and, a lot of it is paper rumour and not a lot in it. But I think the signs we have made are good. I think we've also done well shifting some deadwood, which needed to be done. The likes of Højbjerg, hopefully Lo Celso in the final moments, Manuel Solomon, just names like that just needed to be moved on, shifted out. So I think that's got to be taken into consideration when we talk about this transfer window. Rome wasn't built in a day. We've seen it with Arsenal up the road with how they had to get rid of the likes of Mustafi and Socrates and Cedric Suarez to sort of get anywhere and be the club they are today. So I'm quite happy with our business. I think there's still some areas of improvement. There is that worry of maybe a left back cover for Destiny Udogie or a centre back option if Mickey van der Ven gets injured on the left hand side because Dragason's more comfortable on the right. Maybe a backup goalkeeper. But I guess these are things that are not seen as priority, and I feel like the priorities have been done, and maybe you could also say a more competent 6, but maybe this guy from Real Betis or Archie Gray, Basuma are seen as that future 6. So I'm quite content, I would say, with the window. I think, it's a very tricky market. Prices are all over the place. And, I think what it is as well, final point I'll make on this is, I think where fans get annoyed is the likes of Pedro Neto and Chiesa, who we've been linked to, but then gone to other clubs. But I look at them signings and think, injury-prone players. We don't need injury-prone players at Spurs, really, even though Dominic Solanke's still injured. But yeah, I'm quite happy with the window, I'll be honest, which maybe doesn't echo a lot of the fan base.
When you talk about Chiesa, what a price Liverpool paid for him. I feel like that is an opportunity missed. Craig, how are you feeling as a Spurs fan? Of course, an hour and 20 now left of the transfer window. What have you made of Tottenham's business?
I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest. I feel like I seem to feel after every transfer window to a degree that we're 2 or 3 short still. I don't think anybody would have thought, even if we'd got 2 players in with a finished article, I just think we would have been a bit further down the tracks had we got those 2 in. 4 decent signings this window. What got me is when Ange was asked in the presser, do you feel you've been backed? What's he going to say to that? No, he's not going to say that. So it's difficult to tell whether he feels like he has been fully backed or he hasn't. We just don't know. I think he'll be pleased with the players coming because they're the right players for him. I think us as fans, obviously, most of us probably wanted a bit more. Disappointed, but I am impressed with the outgoings. I have to say, we've done a terrific job getting players out that aren't in the plans, that don't want to be there, blah, 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 blah. The one that astonishes me is Reguilon. It's kind of known from June that he wasn't going to be in Angie's plans, and he's still at the club. I would have thought he would have been one of the easier ones to move on, considering we could still command a fairly decent fee for him. But it's a weird one. Yeah, perhaps Josh will have some more information on that. But yeah, that was the one that I thought would have been one of the easier ones to shift on. But yeah, transfer window as a whole for me, I said 6.5 last night. I'm going to stick with that. So yeah, I think it's 6.5, unless something miraculous happens, which doesn't look like it's going to.
Josh, I feel like I've spoken to you so much lately about transfers, and we do agree the fact that, you know, what an opportunity it is again to really push on as a football club, sign a couple more players, back Ange Postecoglou, because of course we're playing in the Europa League, which of course we'll talk about later on in the show. But playing a lot more football, which Ange Postecoglou is very excited about. You need a much bigger and more depth in the squad. Do you believe that the squad is better and stronger this season than last?
I think it's still so early to tell because we're only, 2 games into the season. And, you know, I feel like a lot of the football has been good, but, you know, we're going into Newcastle without a recognised striker. We played against Everton without a recognised striker. You know, and I think where this will be answered is at the point where, you know, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but inevitably Van der Ven gets an injury or Udogie gets injured again. And those areas that we kind of, I think, all know need strengthening that haven't been strengthened. One thing I would say on the Reguilon thing is, you know, it really is simple. If he's not going to go, and of course, you know, there could be something late, a late loan move. You know, I'm sure there'll be a couple of Premier League clubs that if they think they can do it, they'll try. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Saudi window, I think, shuts on Monday. Turkey in about 13 days' time. You know, but if he is going to stay at the club, get him involved. Ange needs to address whatever, you know, needs addressing. And, you know, I think Reguilon is perfectly good enough as a backup to Destiny Udogie. I think his ability on the ball would suit this system in many ways. So maybe that's one plug that we can fill. But yeah, it does feel a little bit like, you know, let's take nothing away from the signings. I think signings overall, minus Timo Werner, have been good. Of course, there are players with a point to prove, you know, young players. We kind of don't really know how they're going to be long term or even in the short term. But look, I'm happy with what we've done in terms of getting players out. We needed to get rid of that deadwood. It should have been done 2 years ago, but here we are. At least it is finally being done. Better late than never, I say. But, you know, I do feel like we are maybe 1 or 2 players short. I would say, though, to caveat that, we still got January to come. And Spurs acted very quickly in January last season. You know, Radu in particular, really good signing he's looking like. So, you know, perhaps it is the case that Spurs will identify players quickly and look to do business quickly in January. And that might be the boost that we need. But we shouldn't be relying on, you know, the hoping that we don't get injuries, because that will inevitably happen. And I don't want to see us stretched again, because I think we've got a brilliant opportunity to get top 4 this season. An even better opportunity, I think, to win the Europa League when you look at the teams in that competition. And we all want to see us fighting on all four fronts this year. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I'd say it's probably middle of the road right now. I view it as probably a 6 out of 10 window. It may be higher than that, it may be lower than that, but we won't know until, you know, we've seen a bit of the season, you know, in the coming weeks, I guess.
George, let's stick with you for a second, because the main news today on transfer deadline day is Fabrizio Romano has given the here we go on Giovanni Lo Celso to Real Betis. He has also stated Tottenham complete agreement with Betis for priority option to sign Johnny Cardoso in the future. Can you tell us more about this deal? Because it seems like a weird one. Have you ever known a deal like this?
I mean, it is just completely and utterly baffling. I've never seen anything like it, really. I mean, we're talking about a 22-year-old who will be 23 by the time that Spurs were to go for him. This is a USA international that, you know, his full name is João Lucas de Souza Cardoso, right? So he's Brazilian. He's come from Internacional. I think he spent about 5 years there. He's made over 100 for them. So this is a guy who's played plenty of football. I've never seen him play. He's never been a name that I've heard of as, you know, one of those big talents in La Liga. So that surprises me. He is a midfielder. It looks like he's a sort of holding midfielder type player, but I'm kind of a bit like, what? It doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I'm quite happy with the fact that we've got a 50% sell-on clause to Giovanni Lo Celso, but talk of the fee being what, around 5 million euros? I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah.
For someone, for me, that is far, far better than 5 million euros. And the whole thing seems a little bit odd, a little bit speculative, a little bit kind of like, oh, we're going to think for the future and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. The whole thing's a little bit bizarre. I want to know what the actual fee for Cardoso would be. I don't know if that's come out yet. I've not seen a fee yet. So
30 million, I read.
Put it in the comments. But yeah, I mean, it's... make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. And, you know, I made this point with Odobert, and, you know, I was pleasantly surprised with Odobert's debut, but, you know, this is the 2024-25 season. We're not competing in 2026-27. We need players now, not players for the future. You know, I'm all for buying young, talented players, and I'm not knocking the signing of Gray and Bergvall. I think they're two absolutely fantastic acquisitions. We beat a lot of top clubs to get those players. But, you know, at some point we need ready-made players. There's no coincidence that any team that has won anything buys ready-made players. So hopefully in January at least, or in the last, you know, hour and 10 of this window, we go and do something. And something can surprise us all. It's certainly not going to be Eze, but, you know, how much rebuild, how much kind of building for the future can this club do? You've got to win football matches now. You know, so yeah, it is. The whole thing's just wild, isn't it? Only Spurs where this can happen.
Sonny, let's come to you. What do you make of this deal? Because I saw earlier on your YouTube channel, you made a video about it. What can you tell us about the player himself? Because as Josh says, not a lot of people know a lot about him. What do you know about the deal as well? Because as Craig shouted out, 30 million, that's exactly what I read in various reports as well.
Yeah, I mean, my video earlier felt a bit of a cop-out because I reacted to it really quickly, but I was just a bit like, I even admit, I was like, not even heard of him, quickly looked up him on Transfermarkt. And yeah, I mean, he looks like a DM, a 6 maybe, that we desperately need. But the fact that it's this maybe player that we don't even know, like it says, like the way that Fabrizio Romano's tweet was worded was future. Does that mean January? Does that mean the next summer? Because, you know, we've made a few signings like this where we've, you know, like Luka Vuskovic, we've signed him when he was 16. He's then gone to another club and he joins next summer. We've obviously done a lot of like Bergvall, Udogie, Papa Matassar, where we've bought them and loaned them back to the clubs they were already at. Yang as well. Obviously, he's gone back. The most recent example of this. And then I guess the only other time I've heard of this transfer is sometimes, and funny enough, there's two players who we have that, one's left, but Emerson Royale was part owned by Betis and Barcelona. And then the same with Christian Romero. He was owned by Juventus and Atalanta. So this does happen quite a lot. But the fact that we're now involved with it, Betis, we have a bit of a good relationship with them. We've done a few transfers. Obviously, Lo Celso's going back. But it's strange. It's very, as I agree with Josh, as I say, I've never heard of him. Not sure if he's, proven or, he's played a handful. I think he started 17 games in La Liga last term, but I don't think that he's been pulling up trees. But then I guess with the way that the club is operating under Johan Lang and this stat-based signings, they are pulling names out of nowhere that we've never heard of. Like, never heard of Lucas Bergwall before it sort of popped up, and he seems like a competent player. But I guess I understand this whole thing that the fan base are now saying that we want players like for the here and now. And it makes total sense because, I feel like Spurs are building a good squad, but there's a lot of maybes. There's a lot of, this player could be good, not they're here to hit the ground running. And we're still players like Son isn't getting any younger, for example. So it is a bit of a worry that the fact that, even I'm not sure why we haven't just gone out and bought this player, because we could do with covering that position. And, I think he's 22, so he's not like as young as the players we have been signing, who we have been loaning back. So, yeah, it's very strange. As I saw on Twitter earlier, someone called it a here we may be instead of a here we go, which made me laugh. But, yeah, I just feel like it's very Spurs. And a lot of these signings could go, it could go one or two ways. Maybe it's low risk, high reward, or it'll just be another name to chuck on the heap of players who never really made it at Spurs.
Craig, let's come to you on this deal because we haven't actually bought the player. We've just got the option to buy him because Cardoso has agreed and documents are being prepared in case Tottenham Hotspur decide against signing him in the future. They will have a sell-on clause. What do you make of this deal?
It's not even a deal, is it? That's the weird thing. It's just bizarre. I've never heard of this before. And like you say, it's not like we've bought him, got an obligation to buy him. It's like we get first refusal on him. Is that right? For no more than 30 million.
Yeah.
So whether it's something that they've just lobbed in as part of the Lo Celso deal, the Lo Celso deal, as Josh said, seems incredibly low to me, even though I didn't actually really rate him as a player. But perhaps it's just, but I don't see. Well, it's obviously in Betis's advantage to sell him, and they know they're going to get X amount from Tottenham if we do buy him. But it's just a weird one. It almost seems like an add-on and something that was like, oh, okay, what about this? They've obviously identified the player, and they think that he's got something about him, but it's just a bit of a weird one. I think we need to wait to see some more information come out about it because I don't really know enough about him to comment on him as a player.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd never heard of him. I had to do a Danny Rose and Google him, and even then, it's just a weird one, isn't it? I mean, well, it's like Sonny said, but it's kind of the position that we were looking at because we lost Højbjerg. I personally think we're okay in a 6 at the moment. I'd like to see how we go on till the next transfer window. I think we're well stocked in that area of players that can play there. I'd like to see Gray get a decent run there, and obviously Bissouma, as we've said before, and Sarr and Bentancur. So I think we're okay there, but this is just a real funny one. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with that one.
I've got a couple of clips now from the press conference from earlier today from Ange Postecoglou. The first one, he says it is a positive window. I'm very happy. Let's hear from him, and then Josh, I'll come to you for a reaction after.
In terms of that, though, the squad, obviously there were some injuries last season with no Europe. If there are no incomings today, though, are you happy cover-wise, the odd injury here and there? Are you overall happy with the strength of the squad and the size?
Yeah, look, we if nothing else happens, I mean, there's still a couple probably will be moving out, but if nothing else happens, then I think it's been another positive window for us. I think, as I said, all along you want to go into every window and sort of come out the other side of it, in a stronger sense. I certainly feel that. I think the players who brought in are already making a short-term impact, but even for the longer term, I think are going to be really good contributors for us. I think we've got a better sort of well-rounded squad to deal with Europe and the extra games and whatever injuries we have. And so I think it's been a real positive window.
If that is it, you always said you can't do everything in one window. This will be like your third transfer window. Looking back from the squad you inherited, a lot of big names have gone out as well. Maybe not sort of fit in your system. Overall, happy overall with the progress?
No, as I said, I'm very happy. I think we've done a hell of a lot of work in the last 12 months, 3 windows, as you said. No doubt the squad's changed. I think the demographic of the squad's changed. The suitability to the kind of football I want to play is certainly we're much better equipped for that. There's growth in the team, absolutely. I think we needed to do some fairly major work 12 months ago, and I think in the 12 months since, I think we've gone a long way to kind of getting the team to where we want to, but there's still more work to be done. I've said that before. It was never going to happen quickly. I don't think it should happen quickly. I think when it does happen quickly, it's you're more fraught to getting it wrong. So I think we're in a good place.
Sonny, let's come to you. He says there, I'm very happy. It's a positive window. Do you believe Ange Postecoglou? Because a couple of weeks ago, even a week ago, he said he expects a couple more signings in. Surely he wanted a few more in.
Yeah, I mean, is our managers ever 100% happy in a transfer window? It's hard to tell. And, Ange usually in press conferences, in post-match, pre-match interviews, is usually blunt and to the point. But yeah, I mean, he's probably sitting there and thinking like, he's probably happy with what we've done. He's happy he's got his striker. He's happy he's got a few youngsters. He's got a great track record in improving young players. But, he's probably a bit like the Spurs fans, probably could have done with a bit more, probably wants a bit more depth. And certain positions that haven't got depth, as we've mentioned, left back, left-sided centre back. But yeah, it's hard to really gauge too much from that because, in this current climate with managers, I mean, I've just read on Twitter that apparently Birmingham City in League One have spent more than Manchester City this summer, and I could imagine, Pep's probably sitting there wishing they'd done more. I've seen Arsenal fans not happy with, what they've done this window, and I think they've brought in 2 great players in Calafiori and Mikel Moreno. So I guess, some clubs can't be 100% happy with, what they've done, but at the end of the day, I still think this squad and team is good enough to finish high in the Premier League, hopefully go on a good run in the Europa League as well. And I think what we need from Ange is we need a bit more rotation, willing to drop players if they're not performing, say Maddison in certain performances, and also use the youth academy that we've got at our disposal. He gave lots of minutes in pre-season to certain youngsters. Give Mikey Moore a shot. Give Will Lancashire a go up top in certain games. I feel like it's worth a go, and we've seen them achieve a lot at youth level. So, maybe that's some of it behind maybe why we haven't signed certain players. Like he trusts players in certain positions in the youth team, but obviously that's me just speculating and not with any hard evidence there.
Josh, Ange said only a week ago that he wants to bridge that gap between Spurs and the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City. Do you believe that we have done that in this transfer window?
Well, I think it's important to note that bridging the gap, what does that actually mean? Is that just in terms of what you do in the transfer window, or is that actually as a team, your performances, all of that? I think if every player can improve on their game this season compared to last season, we will have bridged the gap, almost certainly. But, I think, in terms of what Andrew's just said there, look, I think he's got to toe the line a little bit. There's a time and a place to start kicking up a stink, and it's not right at the start of the season when you've had I would say a positive start to the season. Yes, we should have won at Leicester, but it's been positive. I don't think Andrew's going to kick up a fuss before 2 really important games. It's just not going to happen. We've also got January, to get deals done. So I think if Ange is unhappy, and I'm not saying that Ange is happy, like Sonny says, it is all speculation at this point, trying to read into people's body language and tone and this, that, and the other. I'm not a mouth reader or body language expert, one of those sort of nonsense types. But, what I do see is that we do have a great opportunity to improve on last season, and we've got some very talented players in. Whether that's enough, I'm not convinced, but time will tell. I think if there's a time when, can we expect Ange to kick off at some point? Well, maybe, yes. Maybe he will reach a boiling point, a bit like Conte did. But, we're not going to see that now, not so early into the season.
Josh, my point is, though, when it's only a week or so ago, he says that he expects or wants a couple more players in, and then he talks about bridging that gap between the top teams. And then also recently he said, I'm not interested in 5th, 4th, 2nd or 3rd. I want to be 1st. When he talks like that, when our manager talks like that they want to be number 1, I think there is a big expectation within the fan base because, Sonny, for example, today seems quite positive about the window, but you go online, you talk to people every day, you talk to a lot of Spurs fans. There is a lot of people very unhappy and expected a lot more in the transfer window. I feel like I'm quite level-headed about it, and I feel like we are a couple players away again. Even Craig said at the start of the show, it always seems that we're 2 or 3 players away from really pushing on. And I feel like this again is another opportunity where we could have pushed on, especially when we've got more games.
Hotspur then, because under Daniel Levy, we've seen the same story repeat itself over and over and over again. If you're genuinely serious about going to a team that is going to build to win things now, Spurs is not that club. Levy has shown time and time again that is not, there's no interest in that. So, I think we need to trust the process. We need to back the manager. We need to, have faith. But it's very, very hard to, I'm trying to be balanced, but, really, I'm pretty furious that once again, and I agree with you, we have missed an opportunity here. But I'm hoping and I'm trying to be optimistic in that there's still January. But, ultimately, Spurs have shown what they're trying to do. And I'm not saying that's the wrong approach. I'm not a football expert. I don't understand the game the way these guys do. But what I would say is, if you want to win now or you want to build a team to bridge that gap, and he's talking wanting to do that pretty quickly, you need to bring in players who are going to give you all the tools to do that. Bergvall and Gray might be the best signings of the decade, next season or by the end of this season. We don't know yet, but all we can do is make an opinion right now. And right now, it doesn't look like that's what we've gone out and done.
Yeah. Craig, let's come to you. I don't want to be one of these negative fans sitting here jumping up and down saying we haven't done enough, we haven't spent enough, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be one of those people. But when some of the players are coming out and saying we want to win trophies at Tottenham, and Ange Postecoglou is clearly saying we want to be number 1, we want to win trophies, we want success, surely we all expected a little bit more in this transfer window to take us forward. Because if I ask you the question, do you believe that this squad is capable of finishing in the top 4, which is clearly a target, and perhaps putting a trophy in the cabinet, i.e. the League Cup, the FA Cup or the Europa League, which we'll talk about shortly? No trophy is easy to win. You need a decent squad with decent depth to compete on all fronts.
Yeah, you do, and all we've done, I say all we've done, you could argue is that we've just kept up with those around us. We haven't actually taken that further step, got into, like I say, 2 or 3 more players to take us past those other teams. But as Josh said, he is right. time will tell. It could be that Bergvall and Gray are, come out flying. It could be that Solanke bangs in 20, 25, 30 goals in the Premier League this season. We just don't know. All that we can comment on is how it feels at the moment. And I still feel that we were a couple of players short this window, and we haven't got sufficient cover in certain positions. So it's a funny one, isn't it? We've all got our opinions. You can see in the comments, some people think it was a good window, some people think it was a bad window. I'd say the majority of people are a bit disappointed we haven't brought more players in. Some people think the squad still isn't strong enough. I guess if you ask Liverpool fans, do they think they've done enough? Probably some of them don't think they have, although, of course, they've got off to a decent start. Not many teams have bought in loads of players other than West Ham. You see West Ham's ambition. They've bought in 7 or 8 players this transfer window. So, and a lot of them haven't cost a fortune. And I'm not asked after Spurs going necessarily to spending 155 million pound on a player. I just wanted Ange to get fully backed and bring the players in. As we know, he's very big on players that fit the system over names, which is fine. If he thinks that's going to work, we're behind Ange. I get that. But I would imagine, and I don't know this obviously, I would imagine he's probably slightly disappointed that we didn't get in a couple more. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Right at the end of the press conference today, Ange Postecoglou was asked by Alistair Gold, did he have any temptation in bringing in a centre-back? This is what he had to say.
Just want to ask you about the centre-backs department. Looking from the outside, obviously, last season, Davinson Sanchez moved on and you were left with 3 natural centre-backs and then others that could kind of fill in. Kind of feels like maybe Radu Dragic has swapped in terms of numbers with Eric Dyer, and maybe you're in a similar position in terms of 3 natural centre-backs. Is that something, there was any temptation to maybe add another natural centre-back?
No, and I don't think we're in the same position. I think Radu's a different proposition for us, and certainly with Archie coming into the group, and Jed probably not being in the plans initially, but now in, I think we're in a much different position than we were last year. We've got Ben Davies as well, obviously, who can play as centre-back or at left-back. So, but again, I mean, that's the discipline of it. Yeah, we can go out and sign another centre-back, but if the right player's not there, I'm not going to do it. That's as simple as that. I never have, I never will. For me, it's about getting the right people into, and there wasn't an opportunity for us to bring in someone who I thought was going to add to our group, so we don't do it. We've got Ashley Phillips, we've got young Luka Vuskovic who are available again next year, 2 young centre-backs. I don't want to block their pathway by doing something now that, might look from the outside like, we've got another player, but if that player's not going to be suitable to what we're doing, not going to fit in, why would I bring them in, potentially block, the path for somebody else?
Josh, let's come to you on this. Are you surprised that another defender hasn't been signed in this transfer window? Because when you think about last season, Mickey van der Ven, Romero spent a little bit of time out, either injured or suspended. Destiny Udogie as well. An injury to someone like that at left back, it is going to be, terrible for our back line. Are you worried about that?
I am, but I'm not worried. I kind of agree with Ange a little bit in terms of I understand the centre-back thing, right? I understand because we've got Vuskovic, who looks a real talent. Ashley Phillips, again, who looks a real talent. I do kind of get that. I am surprised that we didn't go for left-back cover because from the start of the window, we've known we've been trying to push Reguilon out the club. Whether he goes or he doesn't, Ben Davies doesn't have the pace, doesn't have the ability for me to play this system. All well and good that we celebrated 10 years of him at the club. Now it's, probably 5 years too late, getting rid of him, and no disrespect to Davis. I think he's been a great servant to the club, but that's not really good enough for this system. We all know that. So, for me, that's the surprise. The surprise is not that of the centre-backs, because I think we've got enough there. And I think that, I don't know whether we can recall Phillips if we get an injury. And also, again, I think that's enough to see us through to January. And if we need to go and buy another centre-back, we go and buy another centre-back. We did that last season. So, for me, it was the left-back thing that was a surprise, not the centre-back thing. And I get what he's saying in terms of that pathway. I think one thing is for sure, we know that this is what they're trying to do at the club. They're trying to bring young players through. They're trying to be that club again. You know, they want to actively give these youth players an opportunity. That's why Mikey Moore was offered a new deal. Lancashire, Gunter today. You know, they want to give these guys an opportunity. And Alfie Dorrington, when he comes back from his injury, he's another one that will be soon probably, he'll be in the conversation, I guess, if he recovers well. So, yeah, I think centre-back, that would have been a nice to have, but for me, it was not a key priority.
Sonny, let's come to you. How did you feel about Dominic Solanke signing for Spurs for £65 million? And what I also wanted to ask you is, what do you make of the negativity amongst the fan base that Spurs haven't done enough? Because I think it is very clear and evident that Ange Postecoglou said on a number of occasions that patience is needed. How much patience do the fans give Ange Postecoglou himself?
Yeah, I mean, first on Dominic Solanke, really like the signing. I have found some of the reaction to it very strange. Like, we want Premier League proven players. And I know some people will say he's only had one good season, which I actually think is a bit wrong. He's had a couple of good seasons in the Championship as well. And, it showed that under an attacking coach like Iriola at Bournemouth, he can score chances. All you got to do is look at a compilation from last year, and the amount of cutback goals where he's on the end of, that's going to be Brennan Johnson, hopefully, putting the balls into him very soon. 19 Premier League goals is not easy to come by. He was in some good company along with Ollie Watkins last year, and we know how highly touted he is. I just think, he's good at pressing. He's English. He's still hitting the peak of his career. His time at Chelsea and Liverpool were unfortunate, and I don't think that was due to him. I think, Chelsea, we've seen this window how erratic they can be, and Liverpool, he was trying to get into a team with, Firmino playing in that false nine role. So, yeah, I really like the signing. I touted that move about 7 months ago because I just thought, I saw people saying Ivan Toney, and we've seen Tony's attitude. I don't think that is a player for Ange Postecoglou. He won't be pulling in the same direction. And the fact that he's gone to Saudi Arabia, or looks like he's going to go to Saudi Arabia, just sort of sums that move up because, Arsenal didn't want him. Chelsea didn't really want him either. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of money, yeah, but that's the going rate for a striker. And I just found it funny how a lot of Spurs fans in my comment section were like, but what about Victor Gyökeres? He's more proven. But it's in a league which is, it's like the Dutch league. You could end up having a Vincent Janssen or a Eriksson. You just don't know what's coming out of the Portuguese league sometimes. And then people say, but, Solanke in the Championship. Well, Gyökeres had a season in the Championship with Coventry. So it's really hard to judge who would have been the better fit. And you just know that, we've signed 2 English players this summer. We needed to sort out the homegrown quota. That was a big factor in some of our signings. But with the disgruntlement, I guess, from the fan base, it is just about the window in general. It's just, I feel like, I've seen some really funny things on Twitter like the last couple of days, basically saying that, a lot of our windows have been a bit crap. When you look at, I would say, and this is a very bold statement, the window where we signed Ndombele, Lo Celso and Sessegnon was worse than when we signed no one that whole calendar year. Because look at all those players, and they're, funny enough, all gone back to the clubs they were at some point, Lyon, Fulham and Betis respectively. So, yeah, I think the last couple of years when it's come to signings at Tottenham, it's been really erratic and hit and miss. But I think last year we saw some of the players we were plucking out, like the Van der Vens, like Udogie the year before. We are signing some good players who were unknown entities, and, Archie Gray is a good example of this. Of so many times down the years, we've been linked with Eze when he was at QPR, Jared Bowen when he was at Hull, or I don't know the name there, Ollie Watkins when he was at Brentford, and we didn't go for it, and they've gone to other clubs. We've now got Archie Gray, who was the young player of the year in the Championship, before he's gone to, say, Brentford or someone like that. We've got in there early, and he looks like a right talent. So I sound like people will say I'm a happy clapper. I do think these signings, smart signings, even if you look at the Archie Gray deal, it's probably 30 million. If you take Joe Rodon into account, going the other way, that was quite a good way to wager that. bet. But as I said in my first answer, I just think there's always going to be things that, are 6. But the thing is, and I pose this to everyone in my comment section all the time, they go, we need a 6, we need X, we need Y. But I never get any names, which I find quite funny. It's always like, we need a 6. And it's like, Rodri doesn't come around every year. There's that, Declan Rice. Yeah. I guess the counter argument to that is Levy's still not willing to probably pay the top dollar that you do to secure those signings.
Yeah, well said, Sonny. I tell you what, I get called a happy clapper all the time, but because I've said on this stream so far that we need 2 or 3 more players. Someone just put in the comments that they've switched off, saying that this channel's too negative tonight. So you can't win.
You can't win.
You cannot win.
But I love it. That's what we're all about, aren't we?
We've all got opinions, but of course we all want the same thing. We all want success. We want Heung-min Son to lift that trophy down the high road. Craig, Sonny brings up a great point, and we've spoken about this before. Lo Celso looks like he's going to be heading out the door today to Real Betis. £100 million on Lo Celso and Tanguy Ndombele. It's crazy, isn't it? And I think that is one positive to talk about this evening, that since Ange Postecoglou has walked through the door, the recruitment has been so much better at the football club because, as rightly Sonny says, that transfer window, Lo Celso, Ndombele, Sessegnon, what a waste of money.
Yeah, that's really funny when you think about it, is that most of those players have gone back to the clubs they were originally. That's an incredible stat, isn't it? Really. But yeah, bit of a disaster, that one, wasn't it? How much did we spend that window? 150 million, probably, easily? Must be, mustn't it?
But my point is that fans quite often say Spurs don't spend money, but, there are the facts. We've spent money, big money sometimes, on some of these players, and they haven't worked out. But the recruitment process, since Ange has walked through the door, or in the last couple of years, has been so much better, and that must continue. So my point is that, every window from now, under Ange Postecoglou, we've got to improve. We've always got to add players, because, of course, we went 518 days that time without spending a penny under Pochettino.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has got better, like you say. Though it definitely has got better, and they've obviously changed the recruitment teams. Paratici started it all off. Really, it did get a bit better when he's had a couple of duds, by the way, including Nuno. He was the one that championed him. But on the whole, you have to say that he's done okay. As I said before, I like the way Johan Lang's working in secret, in the shadows, and that's why I'm holding out hope that they've kept some deal well under wraps, and we're going to get an announcement within the next 40 minutes, but probably being a bit too hopeful for that. But yeah, I do miss those days where I've gone off track a bit here, but I do miss those days where Harry Redknapp's got his arm out the car window, and we see Shaw Luca coming in at 11 o'clock or something like that. They were, or Cranshaw. Yeah, Cranshaw, he must have signed him 4 times, mustn't he? Backwards and forwards between Portsmouth, us, whatever. QPR, I think he went to as well, didn't he?
You saying you want to see Ange out of a car window?
I'd love to see that. Getting asked questions like Harry Redknapp was a phenomenon though, and he was totally different to what we've got now. I mean, those were good times, but these are even better. Let me tell you, it's going to be even better under Ange. I might seem like I've been negative a bit tonight. I'm just a little bit disappointed, because in my heart of hearts, I'm not going to come on here and say I'm 100% happy with the window just to sound like I'm positive when I'm not, because I think we're a couple of players short still.
I just think it's being realistic as fans, because when we've all seen what happened last year, where it derailed our season with Maddison going out injured, Van der Ven, Romero, Udogie spent time out as well. And of course, in that final third, Richarlison out injured yet again. So we're going into the 3rd game of the Premier League season, and it looks like Heung-min Son or Kulusevski will have to play through the middle, and the front 3 will be different again. And we're going to face a tough game on Sunday, which we'll talk about later. Josh, let's come to you. In terms of outgoings and in terms of Spurs doing some super business in terms of offloading players, how would you describe the business? Because the likes of Ndombele, Lo Celso, Dyer, Skip, Royale, Rodon, Sessegnon, Perisic, Tanganga, Højbjerg, They've all gone out the door, and a number of the development players have gone out on loan as well, which will give them some great minutes and experience.
Absolutely. That has been a real positive this summer. You know, we've been begging almost for some of these players to leave the club, and Tottenham have got ruthless. And, you know, Ange seems to be a pretty cutthroat, ruthless guy. Yeah. And he was very clear, you know, that he wanted players out. He was quite vocal about that in May. He was vocal about that last season, you know, and we've done that. You know, of course, it would be nice to have a few extras, and I would love a couple more players. But, you know, we got rid of players that we thought we may not get anything for. And in some cases, you know, like in Ndombele, we've had to, you know, terminate the contract. But I'm glad that we've got those people off the wage bill, out the club, purely for the, you know, the aspect of not having them around the changing room anymore, not having them, you know, looming over. It's no more kicking the can down the road. These players are gone, and we've got some nice loans for young players who have a great opportunity to prove themselves. You know, I've previously been pretty critical over some of the loans that Spurs have done in recent years, but the recent loan deals that we've done in terms of young players going out have been successful. So I can't knock it, and I really, really wish the young players the best of luck on their respective loans. I think Josh Keeley was the latest one, wasn't he? He's gone to Leighton Orient, joining Jamie Donnelly there.
That's a great move for him. I'll tell you, I'm so pleased for him.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, he did a great job at Barnet last season. And, you know, we've got a real group of talented youngsters. You know, Chris, I spoke to you at the one game that they didn't play so well, the Premier League 2 Cup final at Craven Cottage. However, you can see that we've got some really special players, and, you know, they deserve all the success that they've been having at youth level. Now it's time to really see what they're made of in first team football. So yeah, I'm really pleased with all of that. And I think, you know, we have to say, for me, it's a 9-10 out of 10 window in terms of getting players out. You know, and credit where credit's due there, for sure. Of course, I do worry, as, you know, I've said countless times, you know, about that depth and about what happens if we get injuries. But one thing that I do hope for is the fact that, you know, come January, will we have the ability to recall certain players? I'm sure we will. You know, and if they impress enough, then, you know, what's to stop players getting an opportunity? You know, I'll remember when Marcus Rashford made his debut for Man United, you know, really well. He played, I think it was a Europa League game or something. And then the game after, he scored 2 against Arsenal. You know, so it's always good seeing young players given an opportunity. And that's something that I don't think we can ever knock at this football club or any football club. But yeah, in terms of outgoings, brilliant.
Sonny, in terms of Giovanni Lo Celso and Sergio Reguilon, Postecoglou was asked whether if they weren't sold in this transfer window, would they be integrated back into the squad? And he said no. He can be very ruthless, can't he? And when you think of how many players that have gone out the door, you know, when some people are saying, has Ange Postecoglou been backed? I think it's pretty evident that he has been backed, because any player that he hasn't wanted at the football club has gone out the door.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, you know, Reguilon hasn't really featured, has he, at all, I don't believe, under Ange. And Lo Celso did last year, and there was moments where he shone, but there was moments where he just wasn't up to scratch, and he hasn't probably been since, you know, he joined the club, just not hitting those heavy heights that we thought he could. Reguilon, I agree with what I think Josh said earlier. Like, Reguilon, I feel like there is a possibility he could be the backup, but then he's not forgiven Spence, but, you know, Spence has sort of been let back into the fold, and he sort of wants to grow him, and maybe that's better because of him being English as well. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, Ange probably would get the fans on side by, getting rid of this deadwood and, you know, sort of having this clear out. And, you know, Ange wants particular players. Luckily, he has got a good start in 11, I believe, that do and have bought into his philosophy. But yeah, I mean, we saw Reguilon last year, you know, wasn't really good enough at Manchester United, didn't really do anything at Brentford when he went there from January onwards, injury prone as well. You know, I mean, we don't need any more injury prone players. I think Lo Celso is massively injury prone as well. So yeah, I just think it's one of those things where I mean, Levy hates doing it, but just let them go on freeze. Just let them. If you have to run down their contracts, I've just seen apparently Victor Osimhen is because the deal's off in general. He's apparently going to be sidelined until January when they're going to try and shift him again. So managers are ruthless, and Conte again being as ruthless as ever. But it just sometimes that's what's going to happen, and it's a shame if these deals don't go through because they deserve to maybe get some minutes. But how long's the window been open? A couple of months now, and if these deals are still taking till the final stage of the window to get put through, hopefully there's a document or whatever that when they have to file the form late. Hopefully something's happening in the building where to just shift it. It just got to be shifted. It sounds really horrible. Like I think with Højbjerg, people wanted him to go, but then when he went, everyone was a bit sad about it. But it's like you've sometimes got to move on from some of these like cult heroes, I guess you could call them. But with Reguilon and Lo Celso, I don't think they've ever or will be cult heroes for Spurs.
I know some people are going to probably shout me down now, Sonny, when you mention Højbjerg, but when you offload players like him and Emerson Royale with good Premier League experience, and bearing in mind that Højbjerg came on as a sub so many times last season and shored things up at the back in our defensive part of the game, do you feel like we're going to miss someone like that this season?
Do you know what it is? And I said this on a video yesterday, like reviewing the transfer window. It's almost like when Højbjerg did feature last season, he'd do one foot forward and 2 steps back sometimes. It was like he could have been the perfect 6 if he was quick, had a bit of passing range. I mean, that sounds like I'm just writing him off completely. Like defensively, he was perfect. But the problem is he was a Jose player. He was a Conte player. He was perfect for those systems. He did us a job, but he's just not versatile enough to play that position. And people will say, like, maybe say Basuma and Bentancur haven't got that defensive side to their game. But what they do have just works so much better. We saw, when Basuma's on top form, he can really, against Everton like he was, he can make the difference for us in midfield. But Højbjerg just sort of seemed to be like, sometimes you were playing with 10 men. Like, I mean, I forgot what game it was. Nottingham Forest was when he made an impact. But then he took a free kick and absolutely ballooned it over. And it was just, that's the most Højbjerg performance I've ever seen. But I love him to bits because he did wear his heart on his sleeve. And when he riled up Mikel Arteta in the North London derby, you've just got to love those sort of moments.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Craig, let's come to you. Wilson Odobert from Burnley, £30 million. What did you make of this signing? Because, of course, it came right out the blue. No journalist knew anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. As I've said before, I love them sort of signings. Takes me back to the days before we had the likes of X and social media, and nobody knew what was going on until it was done. Of course, I'm old enough to remember the days when there was no transfer window and players could move at any time of the season to any club. And I was thinking the other day, actually, was that better? Did I prefer that? And I have to say I prefer the window because then at least players are going to be around for at least 4 or 5 months. So it's probably better in that regard. But Odobert really impressed me on his debut. Lively. I'd expect him to start actually on Sunday against Newcastle. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think it'll be Odobert, Son and Kulusevski up front. Maddison tucked in behind. When you look at the players we've brought in, Solanke, Gray, Odobert, and of course Werner back on loan, and Yang Min Hyuk loan back and coming in January. Obviously only 3 of them essentially are new players. It's to say Yang's coming in January. Werner essentially, that's a new deal. He was here already. So 3 players in. But when you do look at the list of the players we've got out, I know we've covered this, but Emerson Royale, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Oliver Skip, Troy Parrott, Joe Rodon, Ryan Sessegnon, Tanguy Ndombele, Japhet Tanganga, Brian Hill, Solomon, Valise, Scarlett, Donnelly, Phillips. Obviously, those 4 are on loan, as is Solomon as well. But you'd expect he hasn't got a real future at Tottenham, and the same goes for Gill. And Lo Celso now looking like that's imminent, and with an option for this Cardoso chap who none of us know anything about. So I agree with what Josh said. 9 or 10 out of 10 for me for outs. 100%. The only thing that would make it a 9 for me is the fact Reguilon's still here. But Odobert coming in, Gray coming in, and Solanke coming in, and of course, who am I missing? Who am I missing? Who am I missing?
In terms of incomings,
Yeah,
Solanke, Gray, Odobert,
Bergvall,
yeah.
Sorry,
But technically not in this window.
Exactly, but
Yeah.
a new player for us.
Yeah.
Look, young, keen, apart from Werner, obviously, but I'm discounting Werner. Let's not get into the whole Werner thing. I think that'll bring some people down more than the mood is already, I think.
I'll ask Josh. I'll ask Josh about Timo Werner in a minute.
Yeah, please do.
It's now
not too bad.
It's now 10:30, which means that there is now 30 minutes left of the transfer window, and we can now play the embargoed press conference from Ange Postecoglou. So this will last for about 7-8 minutes.
Who wants to kick us off? Yeah, go on.
Ange, just on Paul Lancashire, impressive pre-season, great goal against Crystal Rovers. Is he someone that you think coming into the Europa League that will kind of start playing properly and maybe even challenging Richarlison if he's fit?
Yeah, look, we've been really happy with Will. Unfortunately, he picked up a slight injury in that game, against Bristol, but he should be right after the window. But that's why we're keeping him with us. Him and Mikey, the two young players, we're going to keep with the first team. And the reason we're keeping them with the first team is because we feel like they're going to contribute and play. Whether that's Europa, whether that's Carabao Cup, whether it's League, they're part of the first team. So. If Richie's out for any extended period of time, then we'll definitely be part of it. But Will and Mikey have done really well in pre-season, and we'll feel they'll benefit from being around the first team.
And just kind of on those two youngsters, even if they don't play in the Europa League, do you think the experience will be so important for them? Trips away to Galatasaray, dream come true for a youngster like that, surely.
Well, yeah, if they play and play well, mate, or else it's not going to be a pleasant experience. It's like anything else in life, all these things, with young players, I think, what I try and instill in them is it's about performance, it's about actions rather than just experiences. And whether Mikey and Will are involved in that, I said the reason we're keeping them with us at the moment is because we feel like them being around the first team environment, we've seen that during the pre-season, it's they've thrived in that, and that's what we'll continue to do. There's always January to us reassess if they haven't played enough, whether we send them out on loan. Other players have gone out on loan because we feel like they need some first-team exposure more regularly. But both with Will and Mikey, they're part of the first team. Like every other player, they get an opportunity to contribute, and hopefully they will.
Darren.
Yeah, hi. No James Madison for England this week. Disappointed. I'm sure he was himself. How far is James from getting back into not just even form, being back to his best, basically? I know you touched on it before.
Well, look, as I said, I think he started the season really well. He's had an impact in both games. Very close to, getting on the score sheet in both games. I think his general play in both games has been really, really good. So, as long as he's training well and playing well, then I'm sure, he'll be in the England reckoning. And I guess that's a question for Lee and future camps. But I know he desperately wants to get back into the England setup. But I think if he continues to play like he does, like he started the season, and makes more and more of an impact, like we know he can, then I see no reason why he won't get back in there at some point.
Do you see no signs of him getting back to his back physically and on the pitch as well?
I think everyone is, yeah.
George.
Forgive me, but throwing it forward as a recruitment team, have you already kind of started thinking about January and what you need to do then to push us away?
Yeah, you always do. I mean, like I said, these things are all cycles, but you just, a lot of it is fluid because you just don't know. I mean, we weren't sure whether Lucas Bergvall would come straight into the first team or we had to send him out on loan because he's an 18-year-old player who's just played in the Swedish league, But, we saw almost from the first couple of weeks of training, okay, this guy's going to be a first-team player. So how he develops, how Archie develops, how Wilson Odobert develops, all these kind of things, are factored into it. but you know, we know there's still some areas in the sort of, when I look at squad management, where we can improve. But again, it's got to be the right person, you know, right player, right person. So you know, Johan and his team now are kind of already started the process of, you know, looking at guys who maybe fit that profile of what we're looking for. If they're available in January, like, you know, Radu was last year, or we picked up Lucas last year in January, then we'll move on it. But it's a constant process. And it has to be that way. Like I said, I've never liked sort of knee jerk or just sort of Hail Mary approaches to things. Sometimes it's necessary. I get that, and you know, it works. But you know, I'm much more comfortable when, you know, things are, you know, done through a sort of process.
You mentioned Wilson now. I mean, you chucked him in last week. He hasn't been in the building sort of a week. Does that sort of show it doesn't matter what players did last season? It's about the here and now. They're performing and training. They're going to get a chance to take.
Yeah, I don't chuck players in. I mean, I think I select them on the basis of some, you know, predetermined criteria that makes me think they're going to do okay. But yeah, no, Wilson was great last week, and I was rapt to get him. He was kind of, you know, one I was really keen on all summer, and like I said, we had to be a bit patient with him because obviously the Dom Solanke deal went on a bit longer than we thought it would, and we had to get that done first. But I thought he was great last week. You know, his first game, 19 years old, and you know, it was exciting to watch, and he'll just get, you know, more and more comfortable with us. Yeah, I've said before, I don't mind, you know, players coming in early and us giving them exposure early, because I think it gets it out of the way. I think you can sort of try and protect them, but I think when you're at a big club, just get them out there, get them understanding that the atmosphere and what the team's like, and I thought he adapted really well.
Cool. And Dan?
Just to pick up on that, Ange, have Lucas and Archie surprised you since they came in, and have their kind of comfort in pre-season? Has that affected or changed your transfer plans?
No, I don't surprise, because you kind of always kind of keep an open mind, and I'd like to think when we're signing players, I'm kind of signing them because I think they're going to be good players. But like I said, you just don't know. Sometimes at 18, you know, Lucas, like I said, he played in Sweden. It's not like he was playing in the Serie A when we brought him across, or Bundesliga we brought him across. And Archie's obviously played a full season in the Championship. But yeah, I've been really impressed with both guys, more in the way they've handled things and their maturity. You know, even though they're 18, and kind of the way they've sort of fit in with the whole group, and their ability to sort of take in information and train at a certain level, because again, our training is fairly intense. You know, their capacity to do that from a physical perspective has been really good. So it didn't really change anything materially in sort of what I wanted to sort of accomplish this transfer window. You know, we may have gone a bit stronger in a different area if both of those guys didn't work out, but you know, that wouldn't have been a major shift from what we've already done. But you know, I think I said before, I think our kind of main focus this window was around sort of the front third, to make sure we really bolstered that, and you know, I think we've got some good outcomes there, and those two young guys kind of just further reinforce kind of the areas where we were okay in anyway.
Any final ones? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was the Embargoed press conference from Ange Postecoglou. Josh, let's come to you. He said there our main focus was around the front third. Now, that is an area where Ange has been the most concerned in his first 12 months as Spurs boss. How are you feeling about the front third now, with Dominic Solanke, Odobert in there? But then, of course, we've still got players like Johnson, Timo Werner, Richarlison, who can be very wasteful in front of goal. I think that's fair to say. That's not me being negative. I think that's very fair. In that front third, do you feel more confident that Spurs will score more goals and create more opportunities this season?
Absolutely. I mean, I was surprised that we scored 4 and kept a clean sheet against Everton. I know Everton were poor, but for me, that was a real special moment, because it felt like, you know, Odobert came in and he wanted to get involved straight away. Solanke, you know, he was unlucky not to score against Leicester, probably should have done, but he looked a danger and he worked super hard. He pressed well. You know, Sonny, up top for the first time. I thought he looked good up top. And maybe part of that was to do with, you know, the winger situation changing. So Decky could take up a sort of more central role, which I thought he excelled in. So yeah, I'm really pleased in terms of us strengthening that attacking line. You know, when I've spoken about the kind of extra players I think we do need, a lot of that is sort of defensive cover, not attacking cover. You know, people may not like Johnson, others may like Johnson, but at the end of the day, the guy got what, 10 assists last season and 4 goals, something like that. So, you know, we know that he can.
It's very important though, Josh, that final third, isn't it? Because you know, we've heard from Vicario before, we've heard from Ange Postecoglou before. They're not really concerned about clean sheets. It is literally, we'll score more goals than we concede. So that front third has got to be very, very of real quality.
Just look at the goals that we concede as well. You know, of course, set pieces, that's another thing, right? But aside from set pieces, the goals that we do concede from open play often comes from players in the final third being wasteful. And against Leicester, we were punished, you know, but this is something that, you know, is vitally important. If we aren't so wasteful in the final third and we don't give the ball away in stupid positions because we don't have players who are prepared to run and move and, you know, play those 1-2s, you know, then we're always putting ourselves under pressure. So Odobert, that was the one thing that stood out for me, you know, and people can say, okay, well, Odobert got tackled a fair bit on his debut, but my God, the amount of times he took the ball on and he was making a run and then he overlapped straight away and he was looking to make stuff happen. You know, that's that sort of direct player we've been missing. So we've also got a proper centre forward who's pretty quick. He's very strong. He works incredibly hard in Dom Solanke, you know, and we've got a second striker in Charleston. I know, of course, injuries. By the way, just on that, I've been told that the injury itself was an impact injury and not a muscular kind of injury. So it was caused by direct contact in training. So that was the reason for it. So it's not a recurrence of a sort of previous injury, that type of thing. That's why I'm not too concerned about it in the long term. But what I would say is, you know, back on the front third, you know, we've got more options there than we've had last season. And, you know, you did ask me earlier, do we have better depth? You know, are we in a better position, a stronger position? I think certainly in the final third we are. We definitely are. We've got 2 strikers finally again at the club. We've got now 4 or 5 wingers, and we've got probably 3 options in that sort of attacking midfield role: Bergwall, Maddison, and Kulusevski. So I'm pleased with that, and I think we're going to score more goals than we did last season. Defensively is still my concern. Set pieces is still my concern, but I would say, you know, Ange's comments there were very telling. He, you know, we were speculating quite a lot in terms of what we were saying pre-embargo. I think now we can say with a little bit more confidence. I'd be interested to hear what the other lads think, but I think we can hear with a bit more confidence now that Ange genuinely is happy with what he's done. And he, you know, say what we want in terms of backing the manager. You know, I think one thing, this is the thing that annoys me in that debate. People think, you know, some people think backing the manager is going out and spending lots of money. But Ange has said himself, he wanted Odobert. We know he wanted Johnson. We know he wanted Solanke, Van de Ven, you know, and he's getting these players. So if these players don't work out, I think that's on Ange, if anything, because they're players he wants. Yeah. So, you know, I've got to give the club and the board, as much as I like to, you know, Levy bash, you know, I'll give him credit. You know, they've gone and got players that Ange Postecoglou wanted through the door, and he was happy about that. And he made that very clear in that embargo section there.
Sonny, let's come to you. Actually, before we do, Fabrizio Romano has just stated that Giovanni Lo Celso back to Real Betis from Spurs. He has just signed his contract, so it looks like another player has gone out the door. Sonny, would you like to react to any of Ange Postecoglou's comments there in the embargoed section? Because he mentioned there that Will Lancashire, Mikey Moore will be part of the first team squad. They will get minutes perhaps in the Carabao Cup and the Europa League. James Maddison obviously wants to get back into the England squad. I thought his performance in the first 45 minutes anyway against Leicester was absolutely brilliant, but we need him to continue that form. Do you think we're going to see that spark from James Maddison again this season?
I think, in the first two games, he looked very lively, linking up really well with Son on the left and Solanke through the middle as well. Going back to what I was saying about that Solanke signing, I feel like Maddison and Solanke, they'll improve each other's game, because so many times I saw Maddison dropping unnecessarily deep last season. He was playing a bit deeper at the weekend, but maybe that's due to, again, Son playing up top, so it's a bit of a different dynamic. But I just feel like last season it wasn't really going James Maddison's way when he came back from his injury. I mean, against Leicester, I know it was his old club. He's probably got something to prove. He looked really good. I just feel like, the way he can, find players, and he's got a really, good eye for a pass. And even like, it's sort of, you can tell there's still something, yet to click, because there was that really nice ball over the top from Romero and he got his feet a bit muddled. So I feel like he's still adapting again back to, playing proper football, after the injury that kept him out for ages. So, yeah, I think, we look at the England squad. Lee Carsley has been very bold with some of his selections, a lot of youngsters, a lot of surprise names, Morgan Gibbs-White and Angel Gomez. But, I still think Maddison would have been a great asset at the Euros. We were missing that sort of flair player who was willing to go at people. Maybe Cole Palmer was that option, but was used not as much as we'd like. But, I mean, yeah, same with the youngsters, what you were saying before. Pretty much echoed what I said. Like, we need this big squad because of Europa, because of hopefully having some cup runs as well this year. A lot of mixed fixtures in that Europa League that we're probably going to talk about soon. And you can see, like, I still think that's probably the reason we signed Werner as a bit of a stopgap. Like, he will play against Karabag and, teams like that where we need to rest some of the players. And pretty much like what Josh was saying as well. I feel like with the front line, some people do think it's a bit Ozzy Ardiles ball. I'm a bit too young to remember that, but, winning games 5-4 instead of, Mourinho 1-0, 2-0 sort of thing. But all the wingers, even if like you might disagree on their level or how good they are, they all bring something a bit different. Odobert is more of a dribbler. Brennan Johnson is more of a pace merchant. Werner, is Werner. But I don't mind. I don't mind the Werner signing. It's a stopgap. Like, it is what it is. It's just a stopgap until we maybe bring in.
Sorry, Sonny, I missed the positives about Werner.
He can occasionally do a nice cutback cross, which Solanke might get on the end of. But yeah, I think we've got options until maybe Yang comes back, and Richarlison can also play on the wing as well. Against Liverpool, I believe he played quite well. Got the assist for Son's goal in that game. So I just feel like this team is, the more it plays together. When Solanke comes back in, Maddison and the midfield link up, I think we will get back to playing maybe like the football we were playing in those first 10 fixtures. Doesn't mean we're not going to concede goals. That's why I think the riskiest thing to do is put a Spurs defender or goalkeeper in your FPL team. But finally, my last point I was going to say, and it's gone out my head, was, that's it, about set pieces. Funnily enough, and this has not really been reported, the fact that we have actually brought in a set piece coach called, I had his name on my screen.
Nick Montgomery.
Yeah, Nick Montgomery, because obviously Chris Davis has gone to Birmingham. And I mean, that's the most Ange Postecoglou thing ever. I've had all this stuff about set piece coaches, and he's sort of coming back through the back door, isn't he? Like, unassuming. And apart from there was a bit of a scramble against Everton, we have looked a bit more. We've looked better attacking them. I mean, Romero's header was fantastic at the weekend and delivering them, but hopefully defensively. I mean, even I sound like I'm gonna, toot the Dominic Solanke horn all night, but his height and aerial presence was so good for Bournemouth from defensive corners. That's going to be a vital asset to us as well. So I like what Ange is saying. I love his press conferences. I think he comes across so well. It's just nice to. I just got really sick of Mourinho and Conte with all their wishy-washy, sayings and idioms. Whereas Ange, I know he can be blunt, but I like that sort of style, mate.
No, that's a great point, Sonny, about Dominic Solanke defending corners as well as attacking them, because of course Harry Kane used to do that a lot for Spurs, and I feel like we've missed him defensively in the area. Craig, before we move on to talk about the Europa League draw and preview the Newcastle game, let's get your thoughts on Archie Gray, because he's a player that's come in, of course, from Leeds, £40 million, someone who looks extremely comfortable on the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody said in the comments, let me address something somebody put, who's getting told off in the background. Well, I do have news on an incoming, and that is next door's cat that decided to come in and eat all our cat's biscuits, and he was the one getting told off. So no real massive news, but that's who was getting told off. It was next door's cat. Archie Gray for me has been a very good signing. Watching him against Hearts, I thought he looked so comfortable, so good. Looked like he played in the team for ages, playing in a position centre back that he hadn't played before. I just think he slotted into this first team like he's been here for years. Whenever I watch him play, I think he's going to get a lot of minutes this season. I really do, and seeing him and Bergvall, I'd love to see them two grow as a pair in the centre of the park. I think that's going to be. I can't remember which of you said it. Might have been Sonny. I don't know, but that could be. Look back in 4 or 5 years and say, wow, Spurs got them for 60-70 million for the pair of them. So I think we can but hope, but I think Archie Gray, especially out of the two of them. He's such a young age. I just think he looks so composed. I think he's going to be a really good player. Really good player. Well, look, we've got 9 minutes left of this transfer window. I'm still not hoping. I'm refreshing my Twitter feed or X feed or whatever it's called, and there is no news other than no Spurs news. Palace, so that's good for them. Right, Sonny, let's come to you. I know we covered that a little bit earlier, but it's great to hear Ange saying that Will Lancashire and Mikey Moore are going to be involved in his plans, isn't it? And hopefully that bodes well for anybody coming through the academy.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen this summer with, I'm referencing other clubs a lot, but the way that sort of Chelsea have been handling their academy players. And what we like at Spurs is and I think West Ham have lost it with their way as well. Of, we love bringing through one of our own and singing one of our own. And these players are not just for us in our academy. We've invested, or Levy, one thing you can say positively, we've invested a lot of money into that training ground and academy. And it is coming to fruition. Like, they're achieving a lot at all the different under categories. Nice to have Jermaine Defoe as a coach at the club. Yaya Toure was there as well for a brief period. So I just think what we want to see next is we don't want to have stopgaps like your Ollie Skips, like your Tom Carrolls or whoever, who are just there to sort of make up the numbers and be, sort of English quota, British quotas. We want to, we're being quite brutal. Like Yaya Santiago, we've got rid of, very high prospect, but not going to work, And at the end of the day, with youth academies, I could list off 10 to 15 names of good players in this, Spurs academy, but we're not going to have a team of 10 to 15 youth prospects because it just doesn't work like that in football. But I think now we can definitely say there's a solid 5 or so who, one, I think should be getting minutes this season, and 2, I hope will, because you say that Mikey Moore just looks fantastic. Will Lancashire is just, Harry Kane 2.0. And the thing is with some of these signings as well is we've gone and poached them from other academies. So like Will Lancashire from Sheffield United, Jude Sunset-Bell from Chelsea. So there is that sort of way that I don't see it as like a profiting thing from the club, but I just hope we see a lot of their minutes. And even if, say, we announce them in a lineup for Coventry away in the Carabao Cup or some of the Europa League fixtures, I have promised that they will have an impact on those games like they did in pre-season. Like they got some minutes in the legs. There were moments last year, weren't there, where we went to Man City, drew 3-3 with them, and we played a full back line of full backs. Emerson Royale and Ben Davis playing centre back. I'd like to think that won't happen this year. I think Andy's going to actually have faith in the academy players because, last season as well, we didn't really have a proper pre-season. We went to a country in monsoon season. So now he's seen what sort of players we've got or what players he's got at his disposal. They should get minutes. I think the players that have been loaned out have got they're the perfect loans. I think, maybe Ashley Phillips is due one more loan spell at the club, another club. I think he's on to Stoke. But yeah, I think, there's still a few where you don't know what their future is going to be, like Alfie Devine or Alfie Dorrington. Are they going to actually break into the team? Because Alfie Devine was touted as the next star for Spurs, but sort of after his loan spell last year, 2 of them, wasn't there? Port Vale and Plymouth. Nothing's really been said about his movements. But yeah, I'm optimistic about the youth academy. It's just we just want to see it now, don't we? Like we just, if say a Brennan Johnson or a Timo Werner aren't working, chuck Mikey Moore in and see what he's made of.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Josh? I know we've covered the academy boys, but I know you're a fan as well of seeing the lads coming through. So apart from Will Lancashire and Mikey Moore, who else from the academy or any of the youngsters out on loan, how many of them do you think is going to make it into Angie's squad perhaps for next year and become fully fledged first team players?
Absolutely. Look, I can only go off the players I've seen. Thankfully, thanks to Spurs play, we're able to watch all those games. I really, really like Alfie Dorrington. I really, really do. And Luca Gunter, I think, is a very, very polished goalkeeper. I must say, I've not seen enough of Josh Keeley, but all the people that I have spoken to that have watched him, say he's a very impressive goalkeeper too. Look, he's
phenomenal. I think he's a phenomenal keeper. He's got and Luca Gunter as well, to be honest. But Josh Keeley, I said to my sorry to butt in, Josh. I said to my Leighton Orient friend earlier today, I said, you've got a cracking young keeper there. So sorry, mate. Go on, carry on.
Absolutely, no. I mean, it's a fair point. He's one that I went to Fulham Spurs, the PL2 Cup final, and when I spoke to one of the sort of stewards there, an Irish lad, and he said, "Where's Josh Keeley?" And he was saying how excited he was by Josh Keeley. And this is someone that isn't even a Spurs fan. So it shows, how highly rated he is. But one player that I want to talk about is Jamie Donnelly. I absolutely love him. He is as Spurs as it gets. Proper, not just, talented player, versatile player. He was an attacking player. Now he's been playing sort of left back and he's been playing, he can play all over. And he said something that, for me stood out was he did a little, I think it was with Will Lancashire actually in pre-season. He did the diary room and he said, what's been your highlight or whatever it was. And he said, actually putting on the shirt and playing for Tottenham, my club. And that I love. I hope he has a really good loan at Orient. It's a good place. I will never say no to a player going on loan to Orient when they're a young player. I mean, it worked out pretty well for Harry Kane, didn't it? I think, but the other one as well is Tyrese Hall. Tyrese Hall, he looks a bit raw. I've seen him a few times now, and he looks physically not quite there yet, but technically he's a special player. So and the thing is, you could almost make an 11 of players coming through the ranks that are, I would say have potential. And this is, this is beyond the Dane Scarlets and the Troy Parrots. So this is players that are simply a cut above. This is the first time in a long, long time where I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, yeah, Spurs have a real group of youngsters who are getting great coaching. But also, I think what's really interesting to see is that a real sign of a project at a club, and this is something that I don't think gets spoken about enough, right, is one of the most important aspects of a project is not what happens with the first team, but it's what happens in that link from first team to academy. Now, we all will remember that saying last season about Klopp's kids. And one of the things that was really important at Liverpool, which was a proof that the club had backed the manager, was the fact that they then got the youngsters playing the Klopp way. And that was the whole thing, you know, forgive me for this, you know, when I was a kid growing up in a village in Kent, you know, we had the Arsenal soccer school that came. So I did that every summer because it was, you know, a football tournament for kids. And they always said, play the Arsenal way, which was, at the time, it was all about trying to get teams to play the Wenger way. Here we can see that they're getting the youngsters to play the way that Ange wants to play. And the proof is in the fact that when Mikey Moore gets minutes or Lancashire gets minutes, they're equipped to the system. They're already ready. You know, physically they might not be there. They look raw, but you can see that the movement and what's going on up there is very much in tune with what we're trying to do. And that excites me more than anything, because it's not just, okay, here's a young, a lot of potential. It means nothing if they can't play the system and they can't fit what we're trying to do. So, yeah, I think it was encouraging seeing Ange's comments about Lancashire and about Mikey Moore, and I'm sure there'll be others to follow. You know, one thing I would say is Mikey Moore, who we probably associate with being a striker, I would expect to see him play probably more right wing than striker if he gets minutes this season. But seeing the versatility of these players as well proves that, you know, something is going right at the club in terms of trying to back Ange and get the whole thing, you know, united and as one. Because the fact that they can play multiple positions, Donnelly left back, who knew, just shows that they're being coached well, and that, you know, they're looking after these players, you know, in terms of their talent. And you know, I also welcome loans for, you know, Ashley Phillips and Vuskovic, who is yet to come into the club, but he's another really exciting one. So yeah, you know, I can be doomy and gloomy about the transfer window, the ownership of the club, what we do, but in terms of the youth team, I just feel genuinely very proud of what I'm seeing at the club.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Josh. Well, everybody, that's the transfer window slammed shut, and we've signed nobody last minute unless something comes through and it's a late deal. But what I can tell you, Tottenham have tweeted or posted, I think it's called now, we have reached agreement with Real Betis for the transfer of Giovanni Lo Celso. So it looks like just a straight transfer, no loan with obligation to buy. So Gio has gone. So anybody who liked Gio Lo Celso, I always remember him for that goal up at City, to be honest with you. I think that's probably one of his best moments. Sonny, just very quickly, who is our backup goalkeeper to Vicario? Is it Austin or is it Forster?
I mean, Foster is everything that a Ange Postecoglou goalkeeper isn't. He's not good with his feet. I mean, he was awful in the penalty shootout, wasn't he, against Fulham? And I feel like that's the last time I've seen him. But I'll be honest, touch words, I think Vicario's got an all right injury record. I think he might be playing a lot of games this season if he isn't bullied off the ball too much from set pieces. And maybe it's Austin, because I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, I think Austin was given a new deal, or what? Alfie Whiteman, one or two of them were given a new deal.
Austin, it was Austin, yeah.
So maybe it is Austin, because even though, I mean, Austin he's no spring chicken himself. What is he now? Is he 20? I'm just going to quickly look it up. He's 25, but I mean, he's better with his feet. I mean, he made a good save in pre-season, I recall, in one of the games. I think it's going to be him. I think Fraser Forster's, no, that sounds really rude. I think he's just kept as a cheerleader at the moment, maybe, just to like sort of English quota. I mean, all three backup keepers are English, which very much helps. But I just think Forster will be gone next year. He's
I think there's a name for that. I think they call it. I think they call it Scott Carson now, don't they?
Yeah, he's the Scott Carson of the team, isn't he? But without the medals. But yeah, I think Austin, Whiteman, it'll be either of them. But I can imagine, as I say, Vicario playing a lot of minutes of football during the periods, you know, the Europa League and all that. Because he's just so good at like coming out, even when it's like those simple like play it back sort of things. There's no like even it still puts I don't know about you guys, still puts the fear of God in me sometimes how we play it around the back.
Yeah.
And when he plays into the 6, but he does it with to aplomb. So I feel like it's all right. It's not too bad. I think a backup keeper's probably signed up next year in that case.
I think it's going to be Austin is the backup keeper on the whole. I don't know what will happen with Forster. I think he's got a year left on his contract, and we'll obviously see how many games he plays this year. We are hoping well over 50 games that we're going to be playing this season. But I think you're right. I think Forster will go probably next summer. But we've got Whiteman, we've got Luca Gunter, and of course Josh Keeley as well come through. So I think we're well stocked for keepers. And I was quite impressed with Austin in pre-season. Made a couple of cracking saves in the friendlies. Looks a lot better than I remember seeing him before, to be honest. So I think he's grown as a goalie. I really do. And I think the one positive for me actually to come out of this transfer window is we've not lost any of our big players, our important players, that people that none of us would want to see leave. Like obviously we lost Harry Kane last year, but you know it could have been quite conceivable. Somebody could have come in for Van der Ven, for Romero, for Porro, for a Doggy, for Sonny even. It always amazes me talking about Sonny that over the 10 years or whatever he's been at the club, nobody's really come in for him. Nobody's really made a serious bid for him. So yeah, I think we've been lucky to have him. He's one of those players we'll miss him when he goes, I think, Son. But yeah, right. That leads us on, I think, to the Europa League. So Josh, I'm going to have to put this on the screen. I know people listening all day won't be able to see this, but this is our Europa League opposition. It took me a while to work out exactly how the hell they were doing this draw. It was a bit confusing to me, but then again, I'm quite simple. But look, the teams we play are Roma, Rangers, Alkmaar, Ferencvaros, Karabag, Galatasaray. Sorry, my eyes are completely going and I can't see the name of that. Elfsborg, that's it, and Hoffenheim. So, Josh, talk us through those fixtures. What do you make of them? What are the tough ones? How do you see us doing in this? And tell us how it works for people that, like myself, still aren't quite sure.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that I did the draw earlier with Chris, and I've got my trusty note with me on this. Look, so the way it works is every team plays 2 teams in the different pots. There were 4 pots, so Spurs were in pot 1. We played 2 pot 1 teams, 2 pot 2 teams, 2 pot 3 teams, and 2 pot 4 teams. Everyone plays 8 games, 4 home, 4 away. You only play once. The top 8 automatically qualify to the knockout stages. Then I think from 9th to is it 24th or something, they've got a playoff round to see who makes up the final 16. And in terms of the fixtures, Spurs have only lost once to one of the teams in this group. That was Roma, and that was in a friendly. Spurs' record against the sides that we have played, of which that's only Galatasaray, Karabag, and Rangers, is pretty good. We've yet to play Hoffenheim, Ferencvaros, Alkmaar, or Roma in a competitive game, or Elfsborg. Elfsborg were the lowest ranked side in the competition, Swedish side. A couple of nice stories in here as well. Troy Parrott gets to return to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with AZ Alkmaar, which is nice to see. And for me, Rangers away is an absolute belter of a tie. Ibrox, they're going to be bang up for it. We're going to be bang up for it. Look, the fixtures are going to be pretty tough. I don't think these are going to be easy games, but it's nice that we're not being sent, as I said to Chris earlier, excuse my language, but to the arse end of Latvia. It's nice that we're going to be, the one away day that is going to be bloody difficult, as we know it will be, is Galatasaray. It's never easy to go to Turkey, never easy to go to Istanbul, and Galatasaray are a pretty good side. Reunions with Davinson Sanchez and Serge Aurier as well. But look, I'm pretty happy with that. Roma at home, that's like a Champions League tie. Rangers away could easily be a Champions League tie. Same with Galatasaray. And I think for those that like doing the travelling in Europe, who's going to complain at a trip to Budapest? You know, and
got my eye on that one. Yeah.
Often a nonsense one, really. I mean, from what I've heard, there's absolutely nothing there other than an aviation museum and the stadium. That won't be easy either. But I still look at that group and I think Tottenham is the best team in that group. I still look at the competition and I think that Tottenham, for me, is the best team in that competition. Yes, there's Bilbao, there's Sociedad, there's Man United, there's Ajax. You know, there are some pretty good teams in this competition. But, you know, with the way that this tournament works, you know, and there's been a lot of controversy around these changes, I'm all for it. Every goal counts. Every game counts. You know, and for Spurs, you've got to win 5 of those games to probably automatically qualify. I think Spurs could win all 8. Of course, we've been to Mura and we've seen what can happen. Dinamo Zagreb, need I remind anyone, things can go south very quickly if you don't take it seriously. But when you look at some of these fixtures here, some of the tricky ones, I think Spurs have no choice but to take it seriously. And I think that for me, you know, I want to see Spurs win any trophy, but it would be especially, you know, it would mean that little bit extra to me, I think personally, if Spurs won the Europa League as opposed to anything else, because I'd just love to see us win a European Cup. And hopefully come the end of the season, come May, we'll all be in Bilbao having a party.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Sonny, anything to add on that? I mean, for me personally, I was glad, certainly for the away fans, people travelling, that we didn't get Karabag away. I think that would have been a absolute slap to get there, wouldn't it? But what sticks out to you? Do you think, like Josh said, I thought 4 or 5. Usually in the Champions League and Europa, if you get 11 points, you're almost guaranteed to go through. What do you see Spurs doing in this stage of the competition?
Yeah, I mean, I like the group. I love the new format of the European competitions. I mean, it's literally now living up to the name. Champions League, Europa League, it's a league. It's not silly group stages where you play the teams twice. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. Some people may say it's unfair. You have to just go Rangers away and you don't get them to come back to us. But I think there's some good fixtures there and winnable fixtures. The only one to me that's really worrying is Galatasaray away, mainly because, I mean, don't get me wrong, they've got a few stars there. And, you know, the Turkish league is attracting some good players, but it's the atmosphere and just maybe some of these Spurs players buckling under the pressure. But when you look at some of the other fixtures, you know, Roma have sort of fallen off a little bit. Rangers should be beating them, but that would be a big atmosphere at Ibrox or Hampden Park, wherever it's played. I'm not really sure. I've heard both stadiums named. AZR Alkmaar, you'd think we'd beat them. I can't pronounce this one. Ferencvaros.
Ferencvaros.
There we are. I'll leave that to you. I think that's beatable. Karabag's beatable. Elfsborg beatable. And Hoffenheim aren't any big team anymore, are they, in the Bundesliga? So, yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like this is our best route for a trophy this year. The fact as well, going back to the format change, that the Champions League teams don't drop in now, I think is so good. So Sevilla, unlucky for you guys, you usually like finishing 3rd and dropping in and winning it, but not anymore. You're going to have to finish 5th and 6th in the Liga. But yeah, I really like this. I think the fact that we are playing some, because you know what it is as well, it's the fact that, you know, I've seen some people say about, oh, it's going to, you know, tastier fixtures early on, but it sort of prepares you for those latter stages of the competition where you're going to have to come up against some tough opponents. And I think that's where Spurs sort of, you know, we're happy enough beating the likes of Karabag and Elfsborg, but when it comes to teams who have actually got some European pedigree, or, you know, like in the FA Cup and what's it called, FA Cup and Carabao Cup, that's when we get a bit unstuck. So yeah, I like it. I think it's going to be some really good away days in there, some nice home ties as well. And I'm more worried about Coventry away, I'd say, than maybe some of these other away ties because of our history with Coventry in the FA Cup.
Can I just throw something in there on this? It's worth noting as well that those are not the fixtures in order. That is purely how it's been drawn in terms of pots. So we do not forget.
It's weird they've done that, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're not necessarily starting at Rangers and ending away at Hoffenheim. It could be Galatasaray away first, which I would absolutely love. Get that one out the way. But for me,
when do they get decided, Josh? Do you know actually?
I think they get it tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, is it?
Yeah,
right.
But and I'm looking forward to that because obviously there's going to be a lot of fixture changes. Premier League, we're going to move to a lot more Sunday games.
Mm-hmm.
But ideal for me would, in many ways, would be I'd like the Elfsborgs and the Karabags first because I'd like us to get, basically into a position where we've qualified by the time we play your Hoffenheims and your
Romas and stuff.
And stuff. Yeah. As I say, Spurs, I think, can win all 8 of those games. It may not turn out that way, but what a coup that would be. Imagine if Spurs not only came top of the group, but came top of the league in the qualification phase, which I think we're very capable of doing. Another thing that's worth noting, someone's asked about Reguilon in the comments. So Reguilon, Ange Postecoglou confirmed he will not be part of the first team if he does stay. Saudi is still open until Monday. Turkey is still open and for another 13 days or 12 days in a few minutes. So unless he goes there, he will probably remain. The other bit of information just coming in, Michael Bridge from Sky Sports News is reporting that the fee for Reguilon, he understands, is 10 million euros plus add-ons and the sell-on fee. So
Lo Celso, you mean? Sorry, not Reguilon.
Sorry, for Lo Celso, yeah. My mind is fried after today. So Lo Celso, 10 million euros plus add-ons and sell-on fees. So Spurs getting a little bit more money than I think we were all expecting. So that, I think, is only another positive.
And of course, I mean, they could have cancelled Reguilon's contract to allow him to almost go on a free, which I suppose still could happen in theory, but I'm sure there's rules against clubs doing that. I don't know that much about that. Josh, you might be able to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's worth it because I think of all the sellable assets, he is one that could probably, as you mentioned, I think, Craig, earlier, could probably get, a slightly bigger fee. So, I think I would expect to see him maybe go out on loan somewhere again, and then we'll reassess in January. Maybe he goes permanently, or maybe he does a loan with an obligation to buy, that type of thing. So, I mean, we've got every single player out pretty much, bar Reguilon so far, which could still happen. So, I don't think we can fault the business in terms of outgoings at all.
No, absolutely. And, I know a few of us are disappointed still, but having seen when I was flicking through X just now to see if we'd signed anybody late, Alan Shearer's quite right. If you think it's bad, Newcastle fans are massively up in arms, and Alan Shearer said they haven't helped Eddie at all, failed him because of their PSR issues and everything else going on at Newcastle. So, that's a fan base that isn't happy. You think our fan base isn't happy? Newcastle fans aren't happy either. Speaking of Newcastle, to close the show, Sonny. Yeah, that wasn't. I didn't actually mean that. But that's a great.
That's quite
segue.
natural. I liked it.
It was. I shouldn't have said that because it would have flowed. There you go. Sonny, Newcastle, last 2 seasons we've played them up at St James's Park, has not been a happy hunting ground. I know a couple of people, Matt for one, who's a friend of the show, been on the show many times, travelled up there certainly the first year and was back out the stadium after about 20 minutes, I believe, because he was so disgusted, along with half our fan base probably. A long way to go to be dished up that performance, isn't it? Are things going to be different this time? Because the last 2 seasons we've been royally handed our arses to us. So, Sonny, give us something positive. Are we going to put in a better performance up there on Sunday?
Yeah, we should have a round robin what's it called? Put in your minutes of when the first Spurs fans are going to be coming out the stadium and making that long walk down the stand. But yeah, I feel it's a weird one, isn't it? Was it 10 goals in the last 2 games, 6-1 and 4-2, wasn't it? I believe in both those previous fixtures. But yeah, it's a weird place because I feel like even if you go back further, we've gone there and battered them or got battered by them. You think of, was it 5-1 on the final day when they were relegated and we finished third in the 2-horse race? And I think we went up there one time and won like 3-0, and Nasser Chadli scored a really good finish in our in our blue away kit. I remember that quite vividly midweek. But what I will say, and I'll probably look at this from a Newcastle point of view, is the fact that they've looked really bad in their opening 2 games. You know, Southampton gave them a good showing at home. They sort of lucked out a bit because obviously there was that Fabian Schär and Ben Brereton Diaz altercation where, you know, say what you want, maybe you got him sent off. And then against Bournemouth, I mean, Bournemouth were so unlucky not to leave the Vitality with 3 points. I feel like Joe Linton should have got sent off. Joe Linton should have got sent off because he's literally clothesline Neto, probably why he's gone down to Arsenal now. And then, yeah, it's not handball. It's come off there. So I think that's an absolute disgrace. But I don't know what it is about Newcastle. And do you know what I've seen is I've seen a lot of, you know, people keep chucking at us occasionally about has Ange been found out. But a lot of people are saying about Eddie Howe, this whole thing with, you know, they play a high-intensity football. It's a lot of running around. But have they sort of been, you know, have they sort of run out of ideas? Because you look at their back line as well against Bournemouth, and it was absolutely woeful. You know, Lloyd Kelly, who we've been linked to, was playing, and they just it's a very strange thing because Newcastle have done well to keep Isak and Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali's back. But something's not clicking. And now I've said that, and I saw some tweet earlier saying like Tonali's first game back against Forest, like 0, like it was something like it said always like 0 passes or whatever, and then was like the caption was rusty as whatever, and then someone quote tweeted it and went scores within 2 minutes against Spurs because that's just what will happen. But yeah, I mean, my prediction, if we're giving them out, I think it might be 2-2. I can imagine it being a bit of a backwards and forwards, 2 weak defences sometimes, and you know, lots of goals, sort of to, you know, caveat that. But it's a strange one. I mean, a positive, and what I'll end on is that they played midweek. And when I don't know if it goes straight to penalties in the Carabao Cup. I was going to say all the way to penalties, but if it was 90 minutes and then went straight to penalties, then they haven't had too much in the legs. But still an extra game, and still the fact that it was quite a strong team they fielded. Isak was playing, and I think Bruno as well. So yeah, it's really hard to call. And then when you got the North London derby the week after, it's just, you know, makes the Leicester result look even more annoying, sadly.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, I still feel that's 2 points dropped, but as you say, 2 big games coming up. In fact, you know, that North London derby just over a week away now. If we can take some points out of either of these games, then, you know, that's got to be good, isn't it? For me, I think it's going to be 2-2. I totally agree. I said that last week. I'm saying it this week. I think I would personally take 2-2. I can see Josh shaking his head. So, Josh, what do you think? What sort of team we're going to put out first? What midfield do you think we're going to put out? And how do you think the game's going to go? And what's your score prediction?
Stick with the winning formula, I think. The only potential change may be Rodrigo Bentancur. He is apparently completely fit, absolutely fine, passed all the tests needed. So that's a massive boost. I have a feeling we'll win this one. You know, Newcastle, I know we get spanked there quite a lot, but we also win there quite a lot. And people forget, actually, our record there is pretty good. It's just the losses that we have had. 5-1, 6-1, and 4-0. It was 4-0 last year, wasn't it? You know, they're the ones that stick out. But actually, we went there and won 4-0. We won there 3-2 on the opening day of the season. We won 2-1 there, I think, on another opening day of the season. You know, we can get results. And I think playing them early, when Tottenham have played Newcastle away early, they are the ones that we seem to have won. So, you know, it's always been back end of the season when we got battered by Newcastle. in those three sort of standout games. So I actually think we're going to win the game 2-1. I've not been convinced at all by Newcastle. Sure, they're going to be G'd up by the fact that Sandro Tonali will be likely playing for the first time in front of the St. James's crowd since his ban for betting. But, you know, as you pointed out, you know, the fans are up in arms. They didn't strengthen in the way they wanted to. Their fans are a bit worried now. And I like the way we're playing at the minute, with or without Solanke or Richarlison. You know, I like the way we're playing at the minute. So I have a feeling that it's our time to go and get a result there. I also do not think at all that, you know, I'd be stunned if Mickey van der Ven slips on his arse twice again there like he did last season. I mean, it was the only time I could fault Mickey van der Ven for a performance. It's the only poor performance he put in a Spurs shirt was that game. So, you know, for me, I'm slightly more optimistic with that. Another thing I just want to add, by the way, on the Johnny Cardoso stuff, I've seen an Arsenal fan tweeted a couple of weeks ago about him, and he got up this data graph. Now, of course, we watch the game with our eyes, not on a data sheet, but he's compared under 23 top 5 league to midfielders or players, and his interceptions per 90 and defensive duels per 90 are the highest of any other player. And there is about 50 dots in there of different players, each dot representing a different player. And his interceptions per 90 were above 5.5, somewhere around there. And he wins about 72, around about 72% of his duels, which is incredibly high. So if that's anything to go by, that's quite an exciting prospect. Of course, we need to go and sign him, but I think he was ranked last season second for the best tackle success rate in terms of tackles attempted, 81.4% success rate. So he's the only player he was behind was Eduardo Camavinga, which is exciting to see. So perhaps by fluke, by luck, who knows? It looks like that's potentially another really exciting player who could yet join the club.
Well, I hope so. And then I think we need to end the show on that positivity, Josh. You never know. You never know with these players. The one, as you said earlier, it's the ones that none of us have heard of really that seem to have done us proud so far. So, yeah, let's hope Andrew's got it right again. Sonny, thanks for coming on the show. We've been on, 2 hours now, approaching 2 hours. Sadly, didn't have anything to discuss incomings, but it's been an enjoyable show. Plenty to discuss as always is with Spurs. So thanks for coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you to Chris as well for getting me on the channel. He keeps DMing me, and I'm usually busy, but luckily I was able to do deadline day. Hopefully not putting the dead into deadline day. But yeah, I saw a comment as well saying that they love the shirts by me. They're my pride and joy. So I'm glad to get a few compliments on them. But yeah, just Sunny Talk Spurs. Type that into YouTube. Done a few videos. Did a reaction to our, I was going to say new signing, new whatever he is. Ranked and reviewed the transfer window as well earlier today. So lots of good content going on. We'll be reacting to the Newcastle game as well on Sunday. So get over to the channel, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and cheers everyone. And great to chat to you, Josh, and you, Craig, as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Sonny. And Josh, thanks a lot for coming on again. Giving us your views. Always great with the information. Where can people find you and what you're up to at the moment?
At Josh Hughes TV. Just ploughing along with the start of the Premier League season. I'm currently on holiday for the first, I say on holiday, I'm at home, but off work for a couple of days more after a busy summer of Olympics and Euros. But yeah, fingers crossed the season continues to start as well as it has, and I'm sure I'll be back on again. And yeah, pleasure to be on with you lads again, talking Spurs for the good and the bad and the ugly.
Absolutely. I should have said earlier, obviously Alfie Devine didn't get a move as well. Something still could obviously happen, but hopefully Alfie will be integrated into the first team squad and get some minutes under range. If not, everybody, that's deadline day done again. Window opens in January, so And then, of course, don't forget we've got 2 players coming in January already. We've already signed 2. So, you know, it's not that bad, is it? Really? Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon. Come on, you Spurs.